is the new 2026 Chevy Corvette ZR1X, and its numbers are incredible. This car has 1,250 horsepower. It'll do 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds. It hits the quarter mile in under 9 seconds, and it tops out above 230 miles an hour. These numbers beat out basically any supercar in existence today. And unlike the Tesla Plaid, it's not full electric. It's a hybrid, yes, but there's a big old V8 under the hood too. And there's also a starting price tag above $200,000. Today, I'm going to review the ZR1X, the ultimate Corvette, and show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the ZR1X. And let's start with all the really crazy stuff. Performance. The regular Corvette ZR1 has 1,064 horsepower and about 830 pound-feet of torque from a twin-turbo 5.5-liter V8. Well, the ZR1X has that and more. This car takes that powertrain and then it adds the Corvette E-Rays hybrid system. Now, this is not a plug-in hybrid system, but it does add electric propulsion to the front wheels. And that gives the ZR1X two big advantages. Number one, all-wheel drive, which obviously helps for grip, especially when you're launching to go fast. It also adds power, and the result is that this car has 1,250 horsepower between the hybrid electric system up front and the gas powertrain in back. And the results are amazing. This car does 0 to 60 in about 1.7 seconds on a prepped drag strip surface. But even on regular roads, you can probably expect 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds, which is a couple of tenths faster than a regular ZR1, and obviously unbelievably fast. The top speed doesn't really change from the regular ZR1s, which is in excess of 230 miles an hour, but the quarter mile time in this car on that prepped surface is 8.675 seconds. That's the quarter time. This car runs a mid-8 at about 160 miles an hour. For context, the Bugatti Veyron, the craziest, most insane hypercar, unbelievable speed, all these crazy accolades, the Veyron does the quarter in 9.5 seconds at about 150 miles an hour. This is a second faster in the quarter, and the trap speed is 10 miles an hour higher than a Bugatti Veyron. Now, it is worth pointing out that the ZR1X does have one drawback compared to the ZR1, and that is the electric hybrid stuff up front adds weight. It's around 250 pounds. But the addition of all-wheel drive significantly enhances the grip, enough that this car counteracts the additional weight and more because of the added benefit of front wheels gripping in addition to the back wheels. Those are the numbers. Now let's talk quirks. Open up the hood, which is also the trunk. Basically just open up the giant rear compartment and you're greeted by the 5.5-liter twin-turbo V8, which actually looks pretty small, even though it is very fierce and mighty. A couple of interesting quirks on and around this powertrain. For one, you have a plaque on the top that says Corvette and lets you know who hand-built this engine. In this case, Jeff Smith, which just, it almost sounds made up. It's almost too American. It'd be like opening opening up the AMG hood and seeing a plaque that says Jorg Schmidt. It's like, yeah, of course, Jeff Smith. Now, you'll also notice on the engine, there's a little image of a rocket ship. You can see it right here. It's a tiny little Easter egg, but it's there to remind us of just how much of a rocket this is and how much of a big deal this car is for Chevrolet and General Motors and the Corvette line. It's like their spaceship moment. You also have a plaque back here that says ZR1X, and it lists a couple of special statistics about the car, the engine size, the horsepower, etc., all in this area. Now, this compartment, the engine, is shared, like I mentioned, with the trunk, and it's the same size trunk, cargo storage compartment, as every other C8 Corvette, which is a pretty impressive feat considering this car has so much power and performance, but they still managed to get this level of practicality. You can still get your golf clubs in the ZR1X. Although, actually getting stuff in here is a little bit of a challenge because of the massive rear wing that goes around the entire back of the car. If you want to put something in here, you got to lift it over the rear wing or come from the side. It adds some inconvenience, but that's the price you pay for downforce. Now, this rear lid over the engine and trunk, it's quite a large piece, and thankfully, it's soft close. And that means when you go to close it, you don't have to slam it, you just kind of get it most of the way down, and it automatically latches itself the rest of the way. And when you have it closed, you can see one of this car's cool signatures, the split window design in back. Of course, a tribute to the old 60s split window Corvettes, which is one of the all-time most beautiful cars ever made. Well, now they've brought it back for the ZR1, and the ZR1X gets the split window design too. And also like the ZR1 and other Corvettes, the rear window also includes all these flying Corvette logos that start larger and thicker and sort of gradually fade out going down the window, which is kind of cool. Over on the other side, you also have an image of a guy. This isn't just any guy, of course, but it's Taj Jukter, who's like the father of the Chevy Corvette. He's been an engineer on the Corvette forever and got to the top of the program and helped develop some of these most amazing latest Corvette models, including this one. You can also see Taj's image on the windshield on the front passenger side in the bottom corner, just sort of a little Easter egg tribute to Taj, who I believe is now retired. And since we're out here talking quirks, let's discuss how you can tell apart the ZR1X from regular ZR1 models. In short, you can't. They're actually the exact same on the outside. There are no distinct differences with the ZR1X except for the badge, which says ZR1X on the rear fender right in front of the rear wheels on both sides. That's the only way that you can tell these cars apart. Now, the ZR1X does get one other standard special feature that the ZR1 does not, and that's the brakes. Massive carbon ceramic brakes, 16.5-inch rotors. They are absolutely huge, and of course they help stop this car unbelievably fast. These brakes are standard on the ZR1X, although they are optional on the ZR1. So just the presence of the brakes doesn't mean you're looking at a ZR1X, but if it has the brakes, it might just be. And by the way, in those images of the brakes, you may have noticed the wheels are carbon fiber, and they are incredible. They are a $14,000 option. Even on the ZR1X, you don't get standard carbon fiber wheels, but if you get them, obviously you save weight and you have one of the coolest flexes in existence, carbon fiber wheels. Now, speaking of carbon fiber, one other thing you'll notice looking around this car is all of the little carbon fiber bits. You have a front splitter, carbon fiber. You have canards on the side of the bumper, carbon fiber. This little flap in the front trunk, carbon fiber. You have these carbon fiber pieces in the back on the sides, and of course, the massive carbon fiber wing. All of this stuff is not standard. Instead, it's all optional and part of the ZTK aero package, which adds aerodynamics and downforce in the form of all of these added carbon fiber bits. Now, all of this carbon fiber stuff, the ZTK package, really has some benefits. Specifically, the added downforce will really enhance your racetrack lap times and keep the car glued to the road. But it's Its drawback is that all these things add drag, and so if you want your ZR1X to be as slippery as possible, you don't get ZTK, and those are the cars that do the highest top speed, the ones without the big wing and the other stuff. As for other exterior quirks, well, the roof. How about the fact that it's, well, carbon fiber? It is indeed carbon fiber, like so many other things in this car, but it's also removable. Even though this is the ZR1X Coupe, and even though there is an available convertible model, even the Coupe gets a removable roof, so even if you choose the hardtop, you can still take the roof off and enjoy the car in the open air. And the roof even fits into the trunk panel like it does in other C8 Corvette models, which is a pretty cool trick, especially again at this performance level. The other cool thing on the outside to me is this giant mesh opening in the front. You can see it's almost like a nostril. It has this carbon fiber flap at the leading edge, and it really gives this car a menacing look when you see it from the front. Very aggressive, very sporty. Maybe my favorite thing about this front panel, though, is you look on the key fob and you can see there's a button you can press to open it up, because in the regular C8 Corvette, this is a front trunk. So you press the button, you open it up, and then you discover it is not a front trunk in this car. Instead, it's a bunch of cooling stuff in here and a few other mechanical components. You absolutely cannot store anything in there. I have no idea why they left the button on the key fob for you to be able to easily access this space, because you really don't want people messing around up here, but the regular Corvette has it, and this one does too, even though this space is rendered unusable with all the performance upgrades in the ZR1. And next up, we move inside the ZR1X, where the first thing you'll notice if you're familiar with the C8 Corvette is that the interior has been updated for the 26 model year. And I have to say, it's really nice in here. You have a lot of nice stitching, nice leather, good materials, carbon fiber. The seats are nice and comfortable. You got kind of cool trim on the door panels, some aluminum everywhere. It's a pretty nice interior and a nice place to spend time. Now, I have not yet been in this new interior in a base level C8 Corvette, so I'm not sure if it's as good as the ZR1X, but I gotta say, this car's interior really works for the price point. It definitely isn't some big step back because you're buying American like it used to be. Now, with all that said, the updated interior does get rid of a beloved feature of the C8 Corvette interior from before, and that is all of the buttons that were mounted on this sort of flying bridge panel in the center console. It was considered weird that all of the climate control buttons and a few others were located here, but I thought it was kind of a neat quirk, sort of an odd but fun attribute of the C8, but they've ditched it. Most of those buttons and functions have moved to either this switch panel in the center control stack or into the infotainment screen, and they've done away with the giant button strip in the center. But don't go thinking that just because the button strip is gone, this interior isn't quirky. There's still a lot of interesting quirks. Starting with the steering wheel, which as you can see, isn't a wheel at all. It is not just flat bottomed, but it is flat topped, and even the sides are not really quite as round as they would have to be to make a wheel. It's almost like a steering hexagon, and it's kind of a unique feature. It does add to the sort of coolness of this car. Meanwhile, in the center, the gear selector is not a gear lever, but instead it's a group of buttons and switches. You can see reverse and drive are kind of switches you pull up, park and neutral are buttons, manual mode is at the bottom of all this. It's kind of interesting and quirky. Although maybe the quirkiest part is that the gear selector is not the most prominent feature in the center. Instead, it's this switch which adjusts your drive modes. You can move it up or down to go through all of the different drive modes in this car. Very easy access to change your modes, which is pretty cool. You don't have to go into some menu screen or whatever. It's right here easily at your fingertips. And in fact, it's even easier to access your optimal drive mode than that, because there's a button on the steering wheel marked with a Z. It's this aluminum button, and when you press it, well, for one thing, the Z turns red, which I think is an unbelievably cool effect, this lighted steering wheel button. But also, it immediately goes into this configurable Z mode that you've set all the parameters for, and you access with literally the quick push of a button. That's pretty cool. But before we move on from this center stuff, a couple more items in here. For one, next to the drive mode switch, you have two important buttons. One is for your front camera. You press that and immediately pulls up the front camera, which is very useful in this car because you don't want to damage that carbon fiber front splitter, so it's nice to have easy access to the camera system. The other button here is the axle lift. You press that and the front lifts up, which again, very nice to have easy access for the same reason. You don't want to mess anything up. Also interesting here is that this car does not rev if you're in park. You get into park, you floor it, and you can't go above like 2,000 RPM, so you can't really hear this glorious engine. But it turns out there's a special rev mode that you can access. You go into drive, and then you pull both paddles at once, and you kind of confirm that even though you're in drive, you want to go into rev mode and not move forward, and then you can rev to your heart's content. Take a listen. As for other interesting quirks in here, well, like in past Corvette models, this one doesn't have a traditional door handle, but instead a door popper button. You press this little silver button, the door electronically pops open, and you can climb out. Although there are very easily located mechanical backups you can see on the floor right here. If the door popper fails, you just pull on the backup, and you can still climb out. And speaking of unusual popping open things, how about the glove box popper, which is located here, this button in between the climate vents on the passenger side. You press that and the glove box pops open, and that's how you get access. A little unorthodox, but better than having to use a screen to open the glove box like in some other cars. And next up, another interesting interior quirk. There is not much ZR1X badging in here to confirm you've got the ultimate Corvette, but there is more than the exterior. You can see at the base of the steering wheel, this little badge says ZR1X and serves as a constant reminder of your specialness. You also have on the door sill the ZR1X logo when you open the door and climb inside, and positioned between the seats here, you can see it says Corvette ZR1X. So a little bit of badging, even if the interior doesn't go totally crazy over the top with your ZR1X-ness. Now, as for the screens in this car, there are a few, and they're all kind of interesting. The infotainment screen in the center is fantastic, actually. It's not huge, but tilted towards the driver, very intuitive, very easy to use, simple, responsive, high quality, good screen. It's nice that there's still a physical volume knob on the side of the screen, as you can see. It makes changing the volume easier, and I like that the climate controls are primarily still buttons. Even though they're not located on the flying bridge anymore, they're here physical buttons to change the most important climate stuff, and then there are some additional controls in the screen, like your heated seats, your cooled seats, your steering wheel, but most of it has physical buttons. I also like the fact that this screen has a nice home screen that shows like the music you're listening to and the map, which is derived from Google Maps, obviously a nice familiar site for most people, so it's good to see that's integrated. As for the gauge cluster screen, not as big of a fan. I wish it were more configurable so you could see, again, a full screen map or the music you're listening to along with a full screen map. A lot of other automakers do full configurability. That's not the situation here. With that said, I do like that the gauge cluster screen changes to adjust for the drive mode, which is kind of cool. And it changes pretty significantly, especially when you go into your racetrack modes. You get this full changed cluster that emphasizes the tachometer instead of the speedometer, which obviously is more important in racetrack settings. There is also another gauge screen. Actually, to the left of the gauge screen, you have this, which is a tiny touch screen that's surprisingly useful. Some people will lament the proliferation of screens and complain about it, but I think it's cool to have this screen here. For one thing, it shows a bunch of different performance data right at your fingertips. You can just kind of scroll through it right here, easy to see without having to adjust the other screens if you have them positioned how you want. It also gives nice, easy trip data, and it's just easy to access, easy to touch, easy to use. Even though it's more screens, it is a pretty helpful one and not particularly large or offensive. And by the way, since we're talking about that screen, also worth pointing out something else interesting over here. Down below the screen, you can see three kind of hidden little switches. The one in the middle, very obvious, on and off traction control. That's a symbol we're all used to seeing. To the left, this one has like a racetrack on it, a checkered flag flag. That adjusts the performance traction management system, which is basically like adjusting the traction control, stability control system of this car for the exact type of driving that you're doing. So if you're on a racetrack, obviously it'll dial things way back, or if it's wet or whatever, you can adjust precisely the traction control and stability control, the amount of intrusion, depending on the driving you're doing. And the other switch over here, well, there's a rocket ship on it. Just like the one that we saw in the engine bay, the same symbol is now here on a switch, and that is launch control. You push that switch and you can see it brings up your launch control menu, so you can start this car hard and do a launch 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. You do have, by the way, one additional screen in this car, and that is the rear view mirror, which looks like a rear view mirror right now, and you can see there's not much visibility, in part due to the split window design and the small back window. But if you flip this switch on the bottom, it becomes a rear view camera, and then it bypasses all of that stuff so you can easily see what's behind you. Great to have this feature, especially in this car. It really helps for safety and visibility. And finally, let's talk pricing. The ZR1X starts around $207,000. That's the base price before you add the ZTK downforce package, before you add the carbon fiber wheels, $207,000 base. And the convertible model, if you want to get that, adds another $10,000 base price for a starting price of around $217,000. Now, for context, a regular ZR1 is about $25,000 cheaper on the base level than the ZR1X. And honestly, that's really not that bad of a value, 25 grand more for this level of performance relative to the regular ZR1. However, it is still a tremendously expensive car at approaching 250 grand with all the options you might want. Big money for a Corvette, although at this performance level, it's still kind of a bargain. And with that in mind, let's go see what this performance level is all about. Time to get behind the wheel of the new ZR1X. All right, driving the ZR1X, and I gotta say, this car is a total monster. Now, it's not, from a regular driving perspective, it's not really any more of a monster than the standard ZR1. And I do think that the vast majority of people would probably be okay with a ZR1 or a Z06 or even a regular C8 Corvette. Because for most people in most driving, that's what you'll do. But if you want the ultimate and the most special and the rare one and all that, if you're a collector or if you're a serious track person or drag race person, this is obviously the car. However, I did just 3 months ago, drive regular ZR1, and I remember how it felt, and it really, again, in regular driving, it really feels pretty similar. And even the Z06 feels pretty damn fast. So what do we get here? This car is, I would say it's pretty frenetic. Like the ZR1 and the Z06, you can daily it, like you can use it. It's not like so insane that that's not possible. However, it's relatively loud in here. It's relatively rough in here. You're constantly hearing the engine. There's a lot of reminders that you're in a pretty crazy car. You're low. You're looking out over some, angular bodywork, all that stuff. I wouldn't say the ride is punishing. I really don't think it's quite as bad as stuff like the GT3 RS, which to me is pretty harsh to drive every day. This is like doable, but it's certainly stiffer than a regular C8, which is obviously a lot stiffer than normal cars. The real party piece, of course, is the power and the power delivery and the way it all works. And it really is unbelievable to me just how fast this car is and just how incredibly speedy it is to accelerate from any RPM in basically any gear at any time. Whether you're going 80 miles an hour on the freeway or coming from a stop, this car is incredibly fast. It's so quick. And of course, a lot of other great stuff too. Transmission, I think the C8 has done transmission absolutely perfectly. It is Really quick to shift, but also very smooth. Really, really works well. And then, of course, steering and handling. Again, regular C8 is already really precise. This car totally takes things to another level. Same level as ZR1, and honestly kind of feels pretty similar to Z06, which I think is sort of the point of that car. But all of them are just unbelievably quick and incredibly eager and precise in their ability to change directions. I do think that there's a little bit less eagerness, a little bit less like quick steering feel than in like the very best supercars. When I think about Huracan and 488 and 296, all of the more recent supercars feel a little tighter in terms of quick steering, but one could argue that those cars feel honestly like a little bit too frenetic, and the steering is almost a little bit too difficult for daily use because it's just so incredibly tight. The moment you turn, you're going somewhere else. This car is maybe a little bit more relaxed than that, and I think that's fine. But going around corners, obviously, this car stays flat. It stays totally planted. It is an exceptionally good car to steer, to handle. I'm not sure whether the all-wheel drive really gives you more of a feeling of true grip. Since to me it's probably more there for acceleration, but it certainly feels like you have just endless grip in this car, and it's just incredibly capable of staying totally planted and totally wherever you want it to go in an incredibly predictable manner, almost regardless of speed. All right, I'm going to send it a little bit right here, okay? Here we go. Oh my God! Oh my God, that is insane. This car is so fast. Now, that was also true of ZR1, but I gotta say, in that moment, this felt faster than ZR1. Probably doesn't make any sense since I'm on the freeway here, and all I'm doing is just gearing down and flooring it. It's probably really actually quicker measurably from a stop, but oh my God, did that feel fast. I'm gonna do it again here, because why not? Whoa! That's wheel spin at 75 miles an hour in an all-wheel drive car. Oh my God, this thing is so intense. What an unbelievable creation. What an unbelievable creation. Just such a damn cool car. I am just so impressed with the C8. Not just the ZR1 or the ZR1X, but the C8 platform in general. This car came out 6 years ago. It still feels cool. It still feels relevant. Even a base car still feels fast. It's holding its value relatively well for a Corvette because there's a lot of interest in it. They've just done such a masterful job of going mid-engine. I wish there was a manual transmission option, but other than that, this car is just such an amazing all-rounder, so impressive and so scary fast. And so that's the new 2026 Chevy Corvette ZR1X. This car is amazing. Truly one of the ultimate sports cars, supercars, whatever. It's ultimate. Amazing to drive, amazing to experience, crazy acceleration, just truly incredible to behold. So exciting to spend the day with this car, and now it's time to give the ZR1X a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 68 out of 100, which puts the ZR1X here against close rivals. This car is truly amazing, and it's up there with the best of the best. The 911 GT3 RS, the McLaren 765 LT, the Mustang GTD, all of them. It deserves it, as this is truly one of the most exciting cars in the modern era, with a laughably absurd acceleration, crazily aggressive styling, and an overall driving experience that creates precisely the thrill you're hoping for when you spend this much money on a special car.